you remember that Bing? Who was that Bing from? Was that your machine? Which machine used to go Bing? No, there was a machine that went Bing before we started. There was a recorder that used to go Bing before we started recording. I can't remember whose machine that was.
Was it the iPod or something?
I don't know what it was. Doesn't make a difference. Right. Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Gentlemen in this room, ladies watching live on Facebook. Thank you very much for joining us. Okay. Tonight, we have all sorts of interesting things to discuss. Hello, everybody. Had all sorts of interesting things to discuss. Start with the following. Something that I found very interesting. The Torah describes... We'll see, there's lots of different things about the Mishkan this week. But the Torah describes... Michael Iris is here.
Hi, Iris.
Okay, Michael said hello. There we go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we have to say, haha. Iris says hi to Rabbi, not hi to Michael. There we go. The Torah says that we have to get all the different artisans out there to do the work. And in verse 10, so we would be on page 516, you got the right page. Verse 10 says, V'chol chacham lev bachem, all the wise amongst you, Yavo v'yasu shekam v'shedu eis kol asher tzivah Hashem. Can somebody read out the English translation? What's the English translation of that verse? Every wise-hearted person
among you shall come and make everything that Hashem has commanded.
Okay, can I ask you a question? What in the world is a wise-hearted person? If I said to you, are you clever? Yeah, I am clever. Why are you clever? Because I have a great... Finish the sentence.
Heart.
Is it?
Would you finish the sentence as heart?
No,
is that what you would say? What would you say? If I asked you, what if I said to you, this guy's a real whiz. Really, what makes him such a whiz? I don't know. He's so clever. He's got a great...
brain.
Brain. No, we got a great brain, right?
Great brain, man.
We're waiting for the brain. You're not waiting for the heart. Nobody says, do you know, I'm clever. I got a great heart. I'm really clever. And how come here the verse says, as it says, wise-hearted people. So what are wise-hearted people? So there's a few ideas that I want to share with you about this tonight. So starting with the first one, I think the first one is very interesting, is that sometimes heart and wisdom need to go together. So David Langer photocopied for me a story, a beautiful story that he read in Ami Magazine. Ami Magazine is a weekly magazine that comes out. And Rabbi Yoel Gold, if you remember Rabbi Yoel Gold, who used to be part of Aish? Yeah. Great speaker, very inspirational, fantastic guy. So Rabbi Yoel Gold he writes a column there on a weekly basis, and people call him up with stories. I've actually called him on more than one occasion with a story. People call him up with stories, and he writes out these stories, and they're very inspirational. And the story that he tells there is the following. There is a man, let's call him Yaakov, okay? I don't know if he has the name. He said the names were changed, but call Yaakov. Yaakov was a seller on Amazon. So he made his parnasa by selling on Amazon, and he was able to get his hands on a whole bunch of iPads at a good price, and he now wants to sell those iPads on Amazon. And he puts them up, 70 iPads he has, up for £400, and hopefully, like in all cases. Anybody here, who's a salesman here? Anybody a salesman? Anybody used to do sales?
I've been in sales.
You've been in sales? In sales, it's very much, you got to get your product, and then you just got to hope. Please, I'll go to my buyers, and they'll buy it off me. Mm-hmm. That's how it goes.
Sure.
Same with Amazon. You put it on Amazon, and you say, please God, or please whoever it is. We'll say, in religious people, we'll say, please God, I'm doing what I can. I think I've bought it at a good price. I think I can sell it at a good price. Let people buy my item. And he goes to sleep. He wakes up the next morning and he finds all 70 iPads have sold. And he's like, wow. Imagine that, 70 iPads at £400. It's $28,400. It was in America. So $28,000 overnight. He's real excited. But he's never sold them so quickly. He's like, they're expensive items. When you sell 70 iPads in one go overnight... something's wrong. Well, okay. Well, wait. He looks at the thing again. And he realizes, oh boy. He wrote $40, not $400. And now because he wrote $40, everybody was like, ooh. If you can buy a brand new iPad at $40, Ivor,
I'll have 3, please.
you'll have 3, please. Absolutely. Yeah? I'll buy one for my dog and one for my cat and one for my sister and one for my brother and one for, whoever it might be. And so no wonder they sold so quickly overnight. Couldn't believe he sold 70. He was so excited with himself. And now he realized nothing to be excited about. Instead of $28,000, he made $2,800. And instead of having a substantial gain, he's now going to have a substantial loss. So he's got one more choice. He says, well, I've not really fulfilled them. They're probably, the order was done overnight. I'm sure it's not been sent out yet. I could actually cancel every single one of those orders. The problem is, if you cancel 70 orders after people have bought something off you, what's going to happen? Your rating's going to plummet, your reputation's going to plummet, and so sometimes you just have to take the hit. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Do you remember when, this is about 3-4 years ago, American Airlines had a glitch in their system in the Danish website. And you could have bought a first class ticket from London to New York for like £85. First class. London, New York, return. £85. And it came up on a Yiddish website and people went berserk. Everybody was buying through the Danish website. Everybody was buying. In the end, they didn't honor it. They just, not only did they not honor it, they said it was a glitch in the system of people, but if you wanted your money back, you wouldn't get your money back. And instead of getting your money back, you know what you got? Credit with American Airlines. Or United, I think it was United actually. It wasn't American Airlines, it was United. Now, who needs credit with United Airlines? When was the last time you flew United Airlines? Oh, shoot, now I got credit with them. What am I supposed to do? I'm going to fly with it. What am I doing with £160 worth of credit? Gets you nowhere. Now you have to spend another £200 for one person to be able to go anywhere. Anyway, he's like, what am I going to do? Am I going to honor this? It's going to cost me a fortune. Am I not going to honor this? It might cost me even more in sales. So what am I supposed to do? Anyway, there's a ping email written by Yehuda from Lakewood. And Yehuda from Lakewood says, hi, it's Yehuda from Lakewood. I realized you put on these iPads at $40, and my guess was that they were really meant to be $400. Is that right? So the guy sends back an email, says, yeah, my mistake, sorry, $40 instead of $400. Writes Yehuda back, dear Yaakov, whatever his name was, I've bought all 70 of them. I laid out the money realizing you made that mistake. And from seeing the name of your Amazon shop, I realized that really you made a mistake here. And I saw the name on the Amazon shop and I would realize it was a fellow Jew, and I couldn't watch a fellow Jew lose tens of thousands of dollars for a stupid mistake. So I bought every single one of them. You'll fulfill the order and send them to me. I will post them right back to you, and you will send me the money. And this way, as far as Amazon's concerned, you fulfilled your order. You've still kept your part of the business, and you're not going to lose any ratings, but you'll get every single one of your iPads back, and I'll get every single one of my dollars back, and that's it. So the fellow was just amazed. He says, what's your name? He says, he goes, I won't tell you my last name. I'm just Yehuda from Lakewood. All the best. Right? What a mitzvah. What a story. Right? Imagine, what would we do? What would you do? As you said, Ivor, we'd all say the same thing. I'll have 3. You wouldn't start to look, wait a minute. I mean, I've had this once or twice I had it once on eBay, where somebody was selling an brand new Apple MacBook for £100. I was like, that's stupid. Something wrong here. Yeah, but I figure, whatever, you put it down, you put in the money. Worst comes to worst, PayPal give me back my money, right? I'm buying it via PayPal anyway. Put in the money. Within 30 seconds, the item was relisted. Back to the same thing. Yeah, but I wouldn't have looked to see, was that somebody who made a mistake, was meant to be 1,000 and he just put in 100? You just say to yourself, the guy, caveat emptor, buyer beware, but seller beware as well. And, if you put up an iPad for £100 or a brand new MacBook for £100, then that's what's going to happen. Somebody's going to take advantage of it. It's just the way it is. In the end, I got my money back. Obviously, it wasn't, it wasn't a real sale and the money came back and I don't even think it ever left my account. But be that as it may, for a guy to look, to see that somebody made a mistake, to have that sort of heart, he says that's a chacham lev. That's a wise-hearted person. A man with a tremendous heart, but also a man with a tremendous head to go with it. Because I'll tell you something. Doing good, sometimes in order to do good for people, you need to use your head. Sometimes to help other people is not simple. It's not simple and straightforward. And you think to yourself, yeah, it's no big deal. He needs a bit of money, he needs this, he needs that. People sometimes, to think out of the box and to be able to help other people when it's complicated, or to help other people when really they've slipped up, that's chokhmah. So when we speak about chacham lev, we speak about it's not that the wise-hearted people. It says people who are wise with heart as well. Because God wanted both. He wanted wise people, but he wanted people who cared. And the two, you put the two together, that's where you really get a tremendous amount of mileage. Bang for your buck, as they like to call it. Rabbi Wallenberg, nice to see you. We're colleagues from London. So that's the first idea. The other thing that is mentioned, which I found very interesting, mentioned by Rabbi Yerucham, and also very important idea, is that we see over here that everybody who was doing their job, nobody had been trained. Ramban explains, no, these weren't trained people. Nobody who was a trained goldsmith, who was a trained silversmith, who knew how to make all these complicated weavings and all the other bits and pieces. So how were they able to do what they had to do? The answer is, God gave them the wisdom. But who did God give the wisdom to? Coming back to the Chacham Lev that we were speaking about. Who did he give the wisdom to? Do you know who he gave the wisdom to? Those that pushed their way to the front. What do I mean with that? I don't mean being rude, like, get out of the way. Oh, I sent that out, right? Remember the Trump thing? Pushing your way to the front? I sent out that video. Did you see that? Yeah? Did you see that one, Elliot? Yeah? Do you know what I mean, Shmuley? From move over. I'm moving to the front. And he makes that face, like, it gives a look of like satisfaction. Get out of the way, I stand in front. I'm the most powerful man in the world. And if not, I still think I am. So, we're not talking about pushing your way to the front that way. But the people that were desperate for this, right? There are certain people that are successful or more successful in life than others. And many, many times, Rabbi Yerucham writes, what is that success down to? Perseverance and hard work. Look around. Is it the most intelligent people that are the most successful? Shmuley, your most intelligent friends, have they been necessarily the most successful people that you...
I would rather not answer.
You'd rather not answer that one, yeah?
But the answer
Shmuley's like, I never had intelligent friends. I was the most intelligent of all of us anyway,
It's called the AQ, Achievement Quotient, not the IQ.
What does the A stand for?
Achievement.
Achievement quotient. Interesting. So there's what's called as opposed to
IQ, intelligence quotient.
Okay, I've heard of IQ and EQ. I've not heard of AQ. That's a new one. I've got the emotional, right? There's a certain emotional intelligence quotient. Then there's intelligent quotients. But there's an achievement. And how do we measure that achievement quotient? How does that get measured?
Balance.
Pardon? But many times, I'll ask you, Michael, the smartest people you knew, did they become the most successful people in life? Not necessarily. No. Do you know why? Oftentimes, this is not a general rule, but this is often true. Oftentimes you will find that people who are clever think, I don't need to work so hard for it. Do you know why? I'm smart enough. I can do it. I don't need to throw myself into it. Whereas the people that aren't as clever say, look, I got to make up for the lack in brains. But I'm not as clever. I'm not the cleverest guy around. So how do I make up for the fact that I'm not so clever? I'm going to schwitz. And those that schwitz, the most successful people in life are usually the people that are willing to schwitz. The people that are willing to work hard, the people that are willing to put in the effort. They're usually the most successful people in life. And those that rely just on their God-given talents and say, well, I'll do well anyway, they're never going to be the most successful. So therefore, Rabbi Yerucham says, and this is so important, he says, in life, one of the most important things is ambition. Find ambitious people. The ambitious people, they have what to show. People who don't have ambition, they're often like, do you want to make more money? Whatever. Maybe. Maybe I'll make an investment. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll make some money. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll get a job. Maybe I won't. You hear people like that. Even if they're very intelligent, you're like, but there's something wrong with you. But you hear people go out there, they're ambitious. I want to do this. I want to do that. I'm willing to put my heart and soul into it. I'm going to work for it. I'm going to gain it. I'm going to earn it. Those are successful people. The successful people are the ones who schwitzed it. Many people become successful because they inherit success from other people. But nobody ever looks at the second generation and goes, wow. I mean, I know people that have inherited big businesses from parents or grandparents. And oftentimes you look back at the grandfather and you see the grandfather started off on a bike selling something small and slowly but surely built himself up, and he brought in his first worker, and then he was able to hire a second worker, and then he was able to finally rent an office building, and now he already had a telephone line. He built himself up slowly but surely. This kid walks in, he goes, look, we got £100 million business running already. What does he need to do? Okay, I'll invest a little bit over there. Look, I made another million here. Look, I made some more. Yeah, with £100 million to play around with, often it's not as difficult to make the extra money. It's the guy that schwitzed it out. He's the guy that really is the creator of this company. And rarely do you find a second and a third generation that can really measure up to first generation, the first guy. And these are the Chacham Lev people amongst you also. The wise-hearted people are the people that are wise, but their heart pushes them. The emotion inside them says, go, go, go. They have to. They can't sit still. I know certain people that can't sit still. But it's because they feel there's just so much to do. How can I not do more? There's always tons to do. They never sit back and go, I'm done. What do you mean I'm done? There's a desperation. There's a hunger there. Yeah? Say that about all sorts of things. I know in football they always say, oh, he's hungry. Yeah, when you got a certain person who pushes himself, he's not necessarily always the best goal scorer, not necessarily the best person on the pitch, but he's the hungriest. He goes for it. And that's what Chacham Lev is, the second idea of Chacham Lev. And the third one, which I found very interesting, David Mintz has this as one on his phone. When I call him, this is the picture that comes up as part of his phone. It says, we don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah.
Have you ever heard that, Michael? No? Anything? No. Yeah? What do you think of that? Do you agree with that or not? You see things through your glasses, right? If your glasses have a certain view, meaning, not the glasses, but if you have a certain way of looking at things, right? If you're a socialist, I know Rabbi David Lister was telling me that Roger was a big labor supporter. And he says, I was very conservative. And for many years, we always argued about conservative and labor and socialism and capitalism, etc., everything that went with it. That's a complicated argument, obviously. But if you're let's just as an example, if you're somebody who's a socialist who sees eye to eye with labor, then you will see the world in a socialist way. You will see the government's austerity in a socialist way. You will see the cuts in a socialist way, etc., etc. If you're a capitalist, you look at things totally different. You'll see what the government's austerity is, and you say, well deserved. I mean, we need to do that. We can't afford it. The socialist says, afford it or not afford it. Look, there's people starving here. Yeah? And they're both right. It just depends whose glasses you're wearing and how you look at the situation. They both have what to say. And it's just your perspective. How come none of us here have the same perspective? In everything.
We're all individuals, aren't we? Yeah.
We're all individuals. Yeah. So what? Well, we see the same thing. You hear the same thing and I hear the same thing. And I find it interesting. I often find with people, they come to me at Kiddush and they say, Rabbi, I really enjoyed your sermon. And I say to them, okay, what is it that you enjoyed? And then they tell me a point, and that's not what I thought was the most important or the best point in the sermon. But they picked up on something else. You know why they picked up on something else? Because to them, that was the most meaningful point. To me, there might have been a different point that was better. But to them, they're coming from a certain angle. So Will Kinter said to me he enjoyed last week's sermon. Why? It was down Dale Carnegie's route. Speaking about Dale Carnegie and about you'll never win an argument with somebody else by arguing with them, all that, that's standard Dale Carnegie, how to win friends and influence people talk. Okay? So when here he hears that, he goes, I knew it. The rabbi's on my side. Yeah? You got to have other people that don't believe in that, and they say, no, I have argued with people and I've argued them down and I've won my... They'll listen to this and go, what kind of nonsense is that? That's not true. If you have the correct argument, you argue it out with people until the person realizes that he's wrong and he'll back down. And others say people never back down. How often have you had people back down? Malcolm, how often do you get people back down if you have a discussion with them?
Not many.
Not many. People don't back down. Very rarely do people do that.
Mainly because they think they're right.
Well, why do they think they're right when I think I'm right and you think you're right? Well, how does that happen?
Right. They have a different
Because
perspective.
I have my perspective and you have your perspective. And we could be looking at exactly the same thing. And yet I say I'm right and you say you're right because I'm looking from through my lenses and you're looking through your lenses. Yeah. And your lenses are created by your experiences, your upbringing, your age, everything that goes into what makes Michael Goldstone, and everything. Mine are created by everything that goes into makes David Eisenberg. And I'm not saying better or worse. The point is I see things as I am and you see things as you are. Because I am I and you are you. That's why I don't see things as you are. And I don't see them... Most people like to think they're objective, but it's very hard to be objective when really deep inside you have all these opinions that are made up already. So how are you going to be objective about things? So that's Chacham Lev, that's the other thing. The Chochmah comes, there is a certain Chochmah that comes from the heart also. Because the heart, the seat of the emotion, is really where your Chochmah is going to come from, your wisdom is going to come from as well. Because your wisdom is going to be painted or tainted or colored by the color of the way you see things. Mm-hmm. So if you wear rose-tinted glasses, everything's going to look fabulous. Even the worst thing, you can find a way to make it feel good. It's terrible. Well, no, I can find the silver lining. And some people who wear very dark glasses will find a way to take the nicest thing and make it awful. Mm-hmm. Because it's your perspective. And the question is, what do you do with that perspective? Very good, okay, Hun?
Very good, sir.
Yeah? Thank you. Thank you very much. Right. Michael gives it a thumbs up. Now, one last idea. Pardon?
I'm wearing all sorts of glasses.
You're wearing all sorts of glasses, but you're not looking through any of them. A very interesting point, a last point that's made by Rav Hirsch in the Seder before we move on to the Megillah. Rav Hirsch says that there's an amazing... The Jews have just witnessed one of the most amazing things. What's happened? The Jewish people in last week's Seder sinned with a golden calf. Imagine that. You know, the way Chazal put it, and I apologize for saying this because it's not a very appropriate thing to say. But it's like Chazal say, it's as if you had a bride that was messing around with someone under the chuppah. That's literally what they say. God came to them. He appeared to them. He says, we are now, I'm your God, you're my people. Yeah, we're married to each other. You go, yeah, you're our God, you're our God. Oh, golden calf. Yeah? Now, we're not discussing the golden calf, why it happened, how it happened, etc., much more complicated discussion. But the point of the discussion is still that the Jewish people had done something absolutely abominable. There's no way around it, almost. And yet, you find something amazing here. What did God do? What did God do? He forgave them, right? It's very hard. Very, very hard thing. I know I had somebody who spoke to me once, who shall obviously remain nameless, who is getting remarried. Okay, so that could be a bunch of people. And I said to him, I said, you're remarrying, what happened first time around? And he says to me, well, my wife decided I wasn't enough. She needed someone else as well. I said, right. He said, but the first time she did it, I said, don't ever do it again. And the second time as well. And like by the 9th or 10th time, I've had enough. And then, there are a lot of people that wouldn't wait 9 or 10 times. Once is one too many, obviously. There's no such thing as saying, well, no, once is okay. 10 times is too much, but you got to give people a bit of latitude. Yeah? You wouldn't give latitude for once. Judaism doesn't give latitude for one either. One is one too many. Pardon? There's one striking you out on this one. Yeah? Stumps go down, that's the end. End of story. No way around it. So, when you have that kind of situation, and you look at the Jewish people who did the same thing to God, and God basically says, one strike, you're out. I'm going to destroy the entire Jewish people. Finish. End of story. Moshe Rabbeinu pleads on their behalf, and what does Moshe Rabbeinu do? He's able to get them to receive forgiveness. That's a phenomenal thing. It's an unbelievable thing to think about, to get forgiveness in such an instance. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't point to anybody here and even use you as an example, God forbid, right? But if there was somebody else out there who had done this sort of thing wrong, and they received forgiveness from their spouse, even if they did receive forgiveness from their spouse, how would the spouse says, you know what? For the sake of the kids, we'll stay together. What would you say about their relationship? Over. The relationship is over, by the way. What remains? Some kind of mutual agreement to make sure that we can raise our kids together and they should have a stable family of sorts. But the relationship is finished, right? So that even if the wife or the husband says, we'll look away, but we're not looking away as such. We're just saying, well, certain things will just keep going anyway. And God forgives them. God doesn't say, like, you know what, like, you'll be my Jewish people from now on, I couldn't care less about you. But I took you already as a people, so, there's nobody else better, so stuck. God says, I forgive you. The Jewish people learned something amazing. A Rav Hirsch says, number one, they learned the greatness of their sin, but on top of that, they learn also the mercy of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. To learn about the greatness of the mercy of Hashem, how He can show people mercy in a way that they can be forgiven for something as heinous as the crime that the Jewish people did, that is amazing. And now comes part 2 of this. And you'd say to yourself, well, the only way they could reach forgiveness in that, what would you assume they would need to get that sort of forgiveness? You'd assume they'd need something like a Beis HaMikdash, a Mishkan, or something like that to receive forgiveness. How can you achieve forgiveness for this kind of sin without really having any place of worship, place to bring an offering? And yet the Jewish people achieve forgiveness without a temple. What does that tell the Jewish people about the temple then? That whilst the temple is a great place of worship, they stand a chance even without it. If it ever gets destroyed, it doesn't mean that is the beginning of the destruction of the Jewish people. Because the Jewish people didn't have a temple, they didn't have a tabernacle, it could have been destroyed, and they weren't destroyed anyway. Aha! Our president, our vice president is here. Hi, David. So the Jewish people could have been destroyed, and they weren't. And they didn't have a Mishkan where they could bring offerings. Later on by Korach, you see, he brings a fire pan, etc., etc. There's a whole... But here, there was none of that. And still they survived. Why? Because as central as the Mishkan is to the Jewish nation, it is not the reason for their survival. It is a central place of worship. It's going to be a place where they can come up and meet up with God, etc. There'll be lots of things that you can say about it. However, even after you've said all those things, we can manage without it. And it makes us feel good. It should make us in our gullus feel good. That we're not stuck and say, well, there's no way to ever get out of this. There's no way God will ever forgive us, etc., etc. They did the greatest sin and still achieve forgiveness without a Mishkan, without a Beis HaMikdash. We can do that as well. Okay, now I want to move on to the Megillah. We're going to start the Megillah. And I want to mention to you a comment that's made by the Gaon of Vilna right at the beginning of the Megillah. So we read about Achashverosh. You don't really need a Megillah as such. You don't really need to see it inside. I'm not going to be looking at the verses inside so much. But the verse says, "Vayhivi Achashverosh." It wasn't the days of Achashverosh. Who? Achashverosh. Who is that? Achashverosh. He's Achashverosh, the one that reigned from Hodor till Kush, from Ethiopia to India, if you were to go with the modern translation. 127 countries. By Yomim Oheim in those days, Kisheves HaMelech Achashverosh, when the king Achashverosh sat al Kisei Malchusai on his royal throne, Asher b'Shushan Habira, which was in Shushan Habira. What is the Mishnah telling us about Achashverosh, about his greatness and how many countries he has, etc., etc.? So the Gaon says is a very important thing to keep and to realize over here. That the nace of Mordechai was in Shushan. Why was it in Shushan? Why did the whole thing happen in Shushan? Where did everybody live until then? Where was the seat of royalty before Achashverosh? Babylonia. Yeah? Babel. Only recently did it move over. Why did Achashverosh move over his entire empire to Shushan Habira? Why did we move it? Shmuley, I'm sure you've heard that one before, about the big throne. Yeah?
Vaguely.
Vaguely. Okay, sorry, apologies. There was
That's all right, don't worry.
Shlomo HaMelech had a throne, and it was a tremendous throne. And Achashverosh wanted a throne like it. And he could only find artisans to make that throne where? In Shushan. So he said, all right, we made it in Shushan, and then we'll transport it to our city. Problem was, it was too heavy to transport. So once they had made it, they couldn't transport it. So what happened was that Achashverosh says, okay, forget it. We're not transported. From now on, Shushan becomes the capital. Who lived in Shushan? Mordechai. Who was the main protagonist of the story? Mordechai. But how did the story move to Shushan? How do you move everybody to Shushan? Says God, I'll give him a crazy idea. Make a massive throne that you can't move, and then we move everybody over to Shushan. And this, says the Gaon, is the idea that goes through the entire Sefer of the Megillah. And he quotes a cryptic Gemara. The Gemara asks the following question. The Gemara is in Chulin, which is, you wouldn't expect this Gemara to be specifically in Chulin, but the Gemara asked, Esther min haTorah minayin. Where in the Torah do we find Esther? Which is a strange question, right? Because the Torah doesn't say, well, and the Torah, the Gemara also, then the Gemara also asks, Haman min haTorah minayin. Where do we know? Where do we see Haman? Right? Does the Gemara ask where we see David HaMelech? Where do we find Shlomo HaMelech? Where do you find Ezra HaSofer, Nehemiah, Yirmiyah, Yeshaya? I mean, there's so many great people amongst the Jewish nation. And yet the Gemara feels it important to ask the question. By the way, if I was looking in the Torah and I wanted to find some remes, some hint as to Esther being there or not being there, where would I find it? Well, why are you asking the question? And then the Gemara says very easy. Ve'onochi haster astir ponai. The pasuk says in Parshas Vayakhel, when you will sin, ve'onochi and I haster astir ponai, I will cover my face. Al Parasha, also for all the bad he did, keep on Elohim Achem, because he turned to foreign gods. I'm going to hide. my face. Says the Gemara. Do you know what that means? Or says the Gaon, you know what that means? We're looking for a Nes in Chutz La'aretz. The only one of the books that you read that brings all these tremendous miracles in Chutz La'aretz is the book of Esther. Chanukah, yeah, Chanukah was a great story also, but Chanukah happens in Eretz Yisrael, so you say, yeah, it happened in Eretz Yisrael, there's Beis Hamikdash. It's different. Here there's nothing. The Jewish people are in exile. They think to themselves, we're all gone. We're goners. Okay? Says the Gemara, how do I know that even when you're in Golus, even when you're in the deepest and the darkest of exiles, that God is still looking after you, and that God still cares about you, and that God will do miracles for you to save you? Right? How do you know that? Says the Torah, Nochi haster aster ponai. I will hide my face. I.e., you'll be in a situation where it looks like my face is hidden. But exactly where my face is hidden, you know whom you find where my face is hidden? Esther. That's what you find. In the most hidden of places, you find the greatest of greatest things. Find Hashem. And therefore, the entire Megillah is all about that. The Megillah is all about every step of the way, God steering things just in the right way, so that these things just seem to happen. Not sure why. Why did Achashverosh want to do certain things that are crazy? Why did Haman come up with all these ideas? Why did Achashverosh take Esther? Why did, all you read through this story, if you read it at face value, yeah, nice story, there was a hidden agent, secret agent, double agent on the other side, who looked like was working on one side and was really working on the other side, and then we find out in the end who the double agent is, and it was Esther, and it was the woman that you didn't think was the double agent, and she kills Haman, and then Mordechai makes it big, and that's the end of the story. It's only part of the story. The greatness of the story of the Megillah is that we were down and out. We were in exile. We thought we were finished. Similar to what we said before about Vayakhel. We thought we were finished. We don't have a Beis Hamikdash. Nobody there to save us. And God says, in this terrible, deep, dark Golus, I can change the entire thing around for you. With miracles, but not open miracles. Not miracles that you see. Miracles that you have to search for. But if you search for them, they're there. And in reality, miracles are there. They're there every day. You just have to search for them. I told you last week, I told you the story about going to the airport. I think I told you that. So when did I tell you the story about going to the airport? As a surprise. I didn't realize I was going to go to the airport with the fellow who wanted to cancel his tickets. Didn't I tell you the story? No, doesn't make a difference. Anyway, I helped a guy reach his plane last Sunday. And story irrelevant for now, but I got a guy to his plane, and he's going to pray by different kvarim, by different Beisalems with different great tzaddikim. And he was going to Bratislava, and he was going to go after that. He was going to go to Michelstadt, and I said, do me a favor. I have a few things that need taken care of as well. Please pray for me about such and such. And he said, send me the names, and I sent him the names, and he took care of it. And thank God it's been quite successful as far as that was concerned. And what happened is I spoke to him this week, and he says to me, by the way, you should just know, prayers were actually quite successful, Baruch Hashem. Really got a lot out of it. So I said, that's lovely. Thank you very much. So he says, why is it that when I pray for other people, I often see that their prayers get answers, and mine never seem to get answered? Right? That's a question he asked me. I said, can I be very honest with you? Very blunt. He says, yeah. I said, look, in the last 3 or 4 years, maybe 5 years, you married off 4 kids. 3 boys and a girl. I know people that are desperate for one shidduch. They have like a backup in their family. They have a 23-year-old girl and a 22-year-old girl and a 21-year-old boy, and they're looking to marry all of them off, and nobody's picking up the phone, and nobody's calling them, and nobody's interested, and they're desperate. They're trying whatever they can. It says, you seem to have relatively easy, married off 4 kids, which people that I know would give, they give the right arm for it. You just got to look in the right directions. Maybe the prayers, maybe the little things you're davening for might not have gotten answered always. But look at the big things that you have. Have that perspective of the tremendous miracles that exist in your life. Look for the good. Don't look for the bad. He says, you know what? You're right. Change my entire perspective. Thank you very much. But it makes a difference where you look. You look for those miracles, you'll find them. You don't look for the miracles, you read through the story of Esther and go, not spectacular. There's nothing spectacular about the story of Esther. It looks like one great coincidence, except if you understand that none of it is coincidence. Then you start seeing one thing after the other. What a coincidence. No, not a coincidence. There's a master puppeteer who's bringing everybody into place just where they're supposed to be. And then, boom, everybody goes, wow, look how I put that all into place. Look like a coincidence, but really, sometimes you watch somebody and he's setting up. Have you ever watched a chess game? And good players, so good players can watch other good players as they're playing, and they're watching, they see like, oh, mate in 4 moves. Somebody's mate in 4 moves, and the other guy goes, I'm not anywhere near checkmate, and you're watching the other guy who's playing, and you know what he's about to do. And he moves the move over there, goes, ha, I'll move forward, right, takes this, oh goodness, move number 3, move number 4, checkmate. Because you knew it was coming. When you know it's coming and you're looking over the checkmate and the other guy doesn't know it's coming, it's even more beautiful because he's walking straight into that trap. And you go, oh, wow, what a shame. I made a mistake. I didn't guard my queen. I wasn't looking. He's like, no, I was watching that queen from beginning to the end. I knew exactly that you'd let go. I knew when you moved that one over there, I knew you'd lost your side on this one, and I knew I could get you. And if you're looking that way, you'll find it. If you look correctly, you'll find it. Thank you very much for all joining us. Thank you, Phil, for coming. Phil gets a shout out for coming. Thank you very much. And, please, if you did enjoy this, like this, share it, pass it on to your friends, and thank everybody who's come in real life, because it's always nice to be able to speak to real people. That's much nicer. Thank you.